In the dim light of a wooden dojo, centuries ago, a young samurai knelt before his master, trembling not from fear of injury but from the weight of his own thoughts. The master's eyes, sharp as drawn steel, seemed to pierce through the layers of doubt and distraction that clouded the student's mind. "Control your mind," the master said, "or it will destroy you before your enemy even raises a sword." The words were simple, yet the meaning was devastatingly profound. Here, in the shadows of feudal Japan, warriors were not merely trained to fight. They were tested on the battlefield of their own consciousness. Every heartbeat, every whisper of fear, every flicker of distraction could mean mental collapse, dishonor, or death. And then the master spoke of a technique that few had ever witnessed, a method considered forbidden, dangerous even to those who sought mastery, a way to quiet the storm of the mind, to bend attention and fear to one's will. This technique promised more than skill. It promised presence, clarity, a kind of control that made ordinary men feel invincible and yet fragile all at once. The young samurai, like many before him, felt the tension of impossibility. How could one possibly learn to govern the mind when it seemed to rule him entirely? And yet, the seed of possibility was planted, a question lingering like smoke in the air. What if everything you think you know about focus, fear, and control is backward? What if the battles you fight outwardly are mere reflections of what rages inside, and mastery of the external world depends entirely on mastery of the internal? For centuries, this secret was kept, whispered only among those willing to confront the chaos within, because it was not enough to swing a sword with precision or endure pain with stoic resolve. True power, the master implied, emerges when the mind becomes the instrument, the shield, and the battlefield itself. And so as the young samurai bowed, uncertain yet drawn by curiosity, the real test began. Not of strength, not of courage, but of presence. The forbidden technique was not just a skill, it was an awakening, a shift that promised to reshape reality itself, leaving one to wonder, could you endure it? And more importantly, could you control it before it controls you? Teeshi was a samurai with hands that could trace a blade through the air with flawless precision. Yet his mind betrayed him at every turn. In the quiet mornings of the dojo, the smell of polished wood mingled with the faint tang of sweat, and the rhythmic clash of swords against targets echoed like a heartbeat he could never quite still. He moved with elegance, his strikes exact, each cut a testament to years of training. Yet beneath the surface, a storm of fear and doubt raged unchecked. Every time he faced a sparring partner, even one less skilled than himself, hesitation crept in, a shadow over his otherwise perfect form. Was he truly ready to strike, or was he imagining the blow that might come from an unseen angle? Each missed parry, each slight misstep was magnified in his mind, becoming a judgment not just of skill but of character. Around him, the other students whispered, some with envy, others with pity, unaware that the real battle he fought was invisible. They saw a young warrior with remarkable technique, but they could not see the trembling in his chest, the thoughts racing faster than his blade. The dojo itself seemed alive. Every echo of a wooden sword against the floor, every scrape of leather against a tatami, reminding him that mastery was not only about strength or precision. Day after day, he repeated the same forms, cutting through the air with mechanical perfection. Yet the fear that lurked in the small gaps between movement and thought grew heavier. He had been told by masters that discipline would quiet the mind, yet discipline alone did not reach the depths of the shadows he carried within. Why did he falter when all the rules, all the drills, all the guidance seemed clear? The question haunted him during meditation, during solitary runs through misty paths outside the village, even in dreams where enemies appeared from nowhere, and his body moved correctly, but his mind hesitated. It was a paradox that seemed to mock him, flawless technique, yet flawed presence. And so, each day, he trained harder, not knowing that his strength without control was a sword turned inward. Whispers of a forbidden technique floated through the dojo like smoke, barely audible, yet impossible to ignore. Some claimed it could silence the inner chaos. Others insisted it was a path no young samurai should tread until he had faced himself completely. Teeshi felt both dread and curiosity at the mention of it, as if the solution to his failures hung just beyond reach. teasing him with the possibility of transformation. Could there truly be a way to master not just the body but the mind? To turn fear into an ally instead of a tyrant? The answers were hidden, the path uncertain, and yet, with every drop of sweat and every tightened jaw in practice, the unspoken promise grew. Only by confronting the fragility of his own mind could he ever hope to wield the forbidden technique. The realization was both terrifying and liberating, for Teeshi knew that the journey ahead demanded courage not just to swing a sword, but to stare into the very nature of his distraction and fear, and to emerge on the other side fundamentally changed. Teeshi had begun to glimpse the faint outline of change, though the path was neither straight nor easy. His master spoke of Shoshin, the beginner's mind, and at first it sounded like nonsense. How could a seasoned warrior return to being a student in order to conquer his own thoughts? Yet the essence was simple and yet terrifying. Absolute presence in every action. Sweeping the floor became a meditation. Each movement of the broom demanded full attention. Every grain of dust a lesson in focus. Walking through the courtyard was no longer a trivial task, but a practice in awareness. Each footstep placed deliberately, every breath noted, every sound absorbed without judgment. Even eating required vigilance. The taste, texture, and aroma of food, observed as if for the first time. The mind, so accustomed to wandering, resisted with every impulse to plan, worry, or replay failure. Distraction rose like an invisible current, yet Teeshi persisted, learning to notice the surge and then return to the present with gentle patience. Modern insights echoed the ancient wisdom, the default mode network, the wandering mind, and the amygdala's alarm signals could be quieted through repeated attention to the now. Neural pathways, once set by fear and overthinking, began to rewire as focus became a practice skill, bridging centuries of teaching with the findings of neuroscience. He understood that presence was not about perfection, but about recognition, catching the mind drifting and guiding it back without judgment. Slowly, subtle changes emerged. During sparring, his strikes felt lighter, more precise, yet powered by calm rather than tension. When he paused in the courtyard, the wind no longer seemed to rattle his thoughts, but carried them into clarity. Each day offered small victories. A heartbeat noticed, a breath held in stillness, a glance that absorbed details previously overlooked. Yet even as he achieved these glimpses, the journey was far from complete. The forbidden technique, though not yet revealed, had begun to stir within him, its power hinted at by these tiny awakenings. Could the mind, so often a source of limitation, truly become an instrument of mastery? Teeshi did not yet know, but he felt the fragile thrill of possibility. He was learning to inhabit each moment fully, to meet fear without flinching, to feel attention expand like sunlight into shadowed corners of his consciousness. The struggle remained relentless, the mind quick to retreat into old habits. Yet every successful return to presence strengthened an invisible spine of discipline. In this quiet, yet fierce practice, Teeshi discovered something unexpected. Mastery was not the absence of distraction, but the courage to observe, adjust, and continue. And in that awareness, he caught the first hints of a transformation that could surpass even his most disciplined skill with the sword, suggesting that the ultimate test, when it came, would not be fought with steel but with the quiet power of a fully present mind. The morning sun barely reached the dojo floor when Teeshi faced his first true test, a sparring match against his master that would reveal whether his hours of quiet practice had taken root. The old Teeshi would have charged, sword flashing in instinctive reaction, mind spinning with fear and anticipation, each movement dictated by anxiety rather than intention. But the new Teeshi, shaped by Shoshin and the painstaking cultivation of presence, moved differently, calm, deliberate, aware of every inch of the space around him, every subtle shift in his master's stance. The clash of wood echoed like distant thunder, yet within the sounds, he noticed the slight tension in his master's shoulders, the almost imperceptible twitch of a wrist, the inhale before a strike. Zanshin, the state of remaining awareness, became his ally. Fudoshin, the immovable mind, his shield. The duel unfolded like a dance, each attack met not with blind parry but with measured observation, each advance countered by a moment of stillness that disarmed both aggression and fear. At one point, the master feigned an opening, a calculated ruse to provoke an impulsive strike. Time seemed to dilate. Could Teeshi resist the instinct to lunge, to betray the lessons he had learned? His heart beat steadily, not in panic, but as a metronome of mindfulness. And in that space, he realized that technique alone would never have succeeded. It was awareness, not speed, precision, or strength that guided his sword. Each parry and thrust flowed from presence, the old tension replaced by a quiet confidence that radiated from the center of his being. The master pressed with subtlety, testing patience rather than endurance, weaving false vulnerabilities that would have undone a less disciplined mind. Teeshi paused, breathed, and observed, letting his intuition, honed through mindful practice, dictate his response. When he finally moved, it was effortless, almost inevitable, as if the outcome had been determined by clarity rather than effort. His sword met the feint with a controlled counter, neutralizing both the threat and the expectation of a mistake. For the first time, he felt the merging of body and mind, each decision born of awareness rather than fear. As the sparring concluded, silence fell over the dojo, heavy yet reverent. His master's eyes, sharp and discerning, softened ever so slightly, acknowledging that Teeshi had passed not through brute skill, but through mastery of the present moment. And in that recognition, Teeshi understood that this victory was only a beginning. The mind, once wild and reactive, could now guide action with precision and calm. Yet the path ahead promised tests far greater, demanding that every ounce of awareness be extended beyond the dojo floor, into challenges that would require presence, patience, and unshakable composure. Could he sustain this clarity under the pressure yet to come? Only time and continued practice would reveal the depth of transformation waiting to unfold. Teeshi's journey led him to the mist-covered slopes of Mount Koya, where Zen monks awaited with silence heavier than the mountain air itself. The training was grueling, yet unlike any combat he had faced. Hours of seated meditation, bodies trembling from stillness, minds teetering on the edge of distraction and surrender. Each day began before sunrise, sweeping temple floors with deliberate attention, each stroke of the broom a practice in mindfulness, each movement a lesson in focus. Meals were eaten in quiet observation, tasting each grain of rice as though discovering its essence for the first time. Walking meditation along narrow mountain paths demanded absolute awareness of every footfall, every shifting weight, every sound carried by the wind. Teeshi soon realized that presence had layers: the surface attention that noticed obvious movements, the subtle awareness that caught thoughts as they arose, and the deeper witnessing consciousness, an observing self that saw both thought and emotion without attachment. Here, mastery was not measured in skill with a blade, but in the discipline to inhabit the present fully, to resist distraction, and to act from clarity rather than reflex. And then came the ultimate challenge, whispered among monks but feared by many, the bandit challenge. Alone in the forest, unarmed, he would confront intruders who sought to rob or harm him, with only awareness as his defense. The first encounter was jarring. Instinct screamed to draw a weapon, yet he remembered the training, the calm rooted in observing each thought and emotion. His breath steadied, pulse slowed, and the space between stimulus and reaction widened. He noticed not only the bandits' movements, but the tension in their bodies, the uncertainty behind their aggression, and for the first time, he perceived them as humans caught in fear and desire rather than enemies. Presence transformed potential conflict into understanding. A swipe of panic could have escalated the encounter into violence. Yet Teeshi's still mind allowed him to respond with timing and clarity that no technique alone could achieve. The bandits hesitated, sensing something they could not name, a force beyond swordplay, an unshakable composure that commanded attention without aggression. In that moment, Teeshi grasped the profound truth the monks had long taught. True power emerges not from external tools, weapons, or displays of strength, but from mastery over the mind itself. Fear became a guide rather than a tyrant. Attention became a resource rather than a liability, and patience became an instrument of influence rather than a test of endurance. Hours stretched like days as he navigated further encounters, each one reinforcing the lesson that awareness, cultivated and sustained, was both shield and sword. The mountain air, sharp and cold, carried the echo of realization. The mind, when disciplined, could shape perception, influence outcomes, and meet danger with insight rather than instinct. Teeshi emerged from Mount Koya transformed, not because he had gained new weapons or techniques, but because he had accessed a level of presence that allowed him to act with clarity, compassion, and unwavering focus. The forbidden technique had begun to manifest fully, not as a secret trick, but as a lived understanding that mastery of the external world begins with mastery within, and that the true measure of a warrior lies in the stillness behind every action, the clarity between every thought, and the courage to meet reality without distraction or fear. By the time Teeshi descended from Mount Koya, he carried with him a mastery that no sword or strategy could provide. The bandits, once poised for violence, paused before him not out of fear, but because his presence radiated clarity and calm they could not name. He moved through the village with a composure that transformed tension into understanding, each glance and gesture disarming aggression before it could arise. Conflict, once inevitable in his world, became optional, replaced by insight and awareness. The lessons of Shoshin, the beginner's mind, had blossomed into something greater, the capacity to witness each moment fully, to respond with presence rather than impulse, and to influence outcomes through attention rather than force. Returning to the dojo, he became both student and teacher, passing on the wisdom of mindful awareness to a new generation of warriors. Each lesson began not with technique, but with stillness, with the cultivation of observation and patience, inviting students to see themselves as architects of their own focus and intention. Modern life, he understood, mirrored the challenges of the dojo. Distractions, fear, and reactive impulses assailed every decision, every interaction, every task. The principles he had learned were not confined to the mountain or battlefield. They were tools for transformation in work, in relationships, in the rhythms of daily existence. Could one approach a meeting, a conversation, or even a morning ritual with the same total presence as a sparring match? The same mindful patience as walking a temple path? Teeshi had discovered that the answer was yes, and the effects were profound. Productivity sharpened, communication deepened, and emotional turbulence calmed under the steady gaze of attention applied intentionally. And yet, mastery was not a static achievement. It was a living process, a continuous practice of observing the mind, guiding impulses and returning to clarity whenever distraction arose. In teaching, he modeled this rhythm, showing students that even small acts, listening fully, moving deliberately, pausing before reacting, could generate transformations that felt almost miraculous. The legacy he carried was both ancient and immediate, a bridge between centuries of Zen insight and the modern human struggle for focus, calm, and purpose. Watching his students grow, he realized the forbidden technique's true gift. It was not power over others, but mastery over oneself, the ability to meet the world without fear, to respond without compulsion, to influence without domination. And now, the question shifts to you. What could change in your life if you approached each task, each interaction, each challenge with the same awareness and presence Teeshi had cultivated? Could your relationships deepen, your work sharpen, your mind find calm in the chaos? The opportunity is not locked in ancient temples or guarded by masters. It is accessible in every moment you choose to notice, to breathe, and to act from clarity rather than habit. Begin today, even in the smallest ways, and experience how presence transforms fear into insight, distraction into focus, and ordinary action into mastery. The legacy waits, not in history, but in the choices you make now.